We often think of ancient texts as just a collection of stories, maybe some myths or historical records. But what if we looked at one of the most foundational texts in Western culture, not just for what it says, but for how it teaches us to think? Today, we're going to explore the book of Genesis as a kind of mental framework, an interpretive architecture for making sense of our world.
It all kicks off with a line that pretty much everyone has heard before. It feels so simple, so definite, right? Like a straightforward statement of fact. But as we're about to see, even in these first few words, there's a huge amount of complexity hiding in plain sight. Because right away, that very first sentence is a puzzle. Scholars have debated it for centuries. Is it describing the first literal act of creation, step one? Or is it more like a title, a grand summary of everything that's about to happen in the rest of the chapter? And believe me, this isn't just splitting hairs. It completely changes how you understand the structure of the entire story. So if the very first line throws us a curveball, how are we supposed to navigate the rest of it? How do we engage with all these layers of pattern and meaning without just getting lost? Well, that brings us to the big idea for today. The tool we need is something we can call interpretive architecture. Okay, think of it like an operating system for your mind. From a learning perspective, our brains don't just stack up isolated facts. Real understanding, that deep down kind, happens when we start to see the patterns and the structures that connect everything. This framework doesn't just give you new information, it actually changes how you receive and organize all knowledge, letting you see the deeper connections. Let me give you a powerful analogy to make this really click. It's kind of like learning to play an instrument while also learning to read sheet music. You're not just memorizing where to put your fingers or what a C sharp is. Your brain is working on multiple layers at once: the physical motion, the musical theory, the sound itself. And what happens when you do that? Over time, all those separate pieces, the notes, the fingerings, the timing, they start to fuse together. They become this integrated, intuitive grasp of music. You're not just playing notes anymore, you're seeing through a whole new lens. That's exactly what an interpretive architecture does. It builds a deeper, more intuitive way of seeing the world. So let's take this idea of an interpretive architecture and slap it right on top of Genesis. Let's look at the creation story not just as a list of things that happened, but as the building of a framework, an architecture of order. The story starts right here, describing this primordial state of things. And the key words you gotta hear are without shape and empty. This is a picture of total chaos, right? Formlessness, disorder. It's the raw material that the divine architect is about to work with. And right away, we see the first major principle of this architecture. Order is created through separation. The text follows this really clear, repeated pattern. God separates light from dark, the sky from the sea, the land from the water. It's a methodical process of drawing lines, defining boundaries, and bringing form to what was formless. But this whole ordering thing goes even deeper. Take the act of naming. In the ancient world, to name something was to show you had authority over it. Then you have this constant refrain, creating plants and animals according to their kinds, which is all about establishing clear categories. And then there's this really clever move. The text doesn't use the ancient names for the sun and moon gods. It just calls them lights, basically demoting them from deities to be worshipped to simple objects with a job to do. Okay, so as this cosmic order is getting locked in, the architecture moves to its next critical layer, figuring out humanity's place in all of it. This becomes the blueprint for what it means to be a person. This is the big moment, and the key phrase, obviously, is in our image. But what in the world does that actually mean inside this framework? Well, the text basically tells us. The image here isn't really about what we look like. It's defined by a function, a job description, so they may rule. Humans are made in the divine image in order to act as God's representatives on earth, to manage and care for this new ordered world. This gives us a very specific role and responsibility within the grand architecture. And this is where the whole architecture gets challenged. The story of the fall doesn't start with a big action, but with a tiny question, a question that's specifically designed to create doubt and start chipping away at the foundation of that established order. It's a direct challenge to the clarity of God's command. So the temptation here is about way more than just eating some fruit. The promise is to become like divine beings, to grab a kind of wisdom and authority that steps way over the boundaries that were just established. It's a temptation to ditch your given role and just seize a new one for yourself.
So inside this framework, fallenness isn't just about one bad decision. It's defined as trying to get wisdom through disobedience. It's a fundamental disruption of the entire architecture, a rejection of humanity's designated place in the order of things. And it basically lets chaos back in, but in a whole new way. All right, let's pull back for a second and think about what this all means. When we look at Genesis as an interpretive architecture, we get a lot more than just stories. We get a lens, a way of seeing the very underpinnings of reality as the text presents them. And this is where it becomes a powerful tool for our own minds. Instead of just piling up random facts, this biblical framework helps us organize and connect these huge core ideas. It gives us a structure for thinking about what it means to be human, how order comes from chaos, and even how we perceive patterns in the world.
Ultimately, the point of engaging with a text like this isn't just to memorize who did what. It's about letting its structure become that interpretive architecture in our own heads, helping us see the world with a deeper sense of coherence. It's just like the musician who stops seeing individual notes and finally just hears the music.
And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. What if the oldest, most enduring stories aren't just telling us about what happened way back when? What if they're actually giving us the blueprints for how we think?